No skyline, no roads, no people. Just red dirt, strange trees that look half fern, half pine cone, and a horizon that goes on way too far. Okay, where's my apartment? You didn't fall asleep in your city, you fell asleep on Earth. Just roughly 280 million years earlier. No dinosaurs, no humans. Honestly, not even anything remotely close to a human. So there's only one question that matters right now. Could you survive this? Because whatever this place is, you're going to have to live in it. First, you need to understand where you've landed, because Earth looked very different back then. Almost all of Earth's major landmasses had come together into one enormous supercontinent, Pangaea, and surrounding it was an ocean so huge that it basically wrapped around the entire thing, Panthalassa. And this sounds cool until you realize what happens when you put almost all the world's land in one giant piece. The coast can still get plenty of rain, but the farther you travel inland, the farther you are from the ocean, and that means less moisture, harsher seasons, and much bigger temperature swings. Some parts of Pangaea were lush, others were brutally dry. And if you just woke up here, you have no idea which one you're standing in. And that's before you've even met the wildlife. There's another problem with living on this version of Earth: water. For a long time, plants had a problem that sounds ridiculous now. Reproduction depended heavily on water. Their reproductive cells needed moisture to move. That works pretty well if you're living beside a swamp. Not so great when the landscape starts drying out. So plants found a workaround: seeds and pollen. Now, reproduction didn't have to depend on a puddle sitting nearby. This helped groups like the gymnosperms spread into environments that were drier and more difficult than the older swampy worlds. Tougher plants, deeper roots, better ways to survive without constantly being surrounded by water. Smart plant. And once the plants changed, the animals had to change too. Because if the world gives you a new environment, evolution gives you new ways to survive it. Nope. Life on land was already getting stranger. Reptiles and other amniotes were becoming increasingly successful because they could reproduce without needing to return to water. That was a huge advantage in a drying world. But then, there's this thing. What? Meet Dimetrodon. And here's the first thing you need to forget. It wasn't a dinosaur. Not even close. Dinosaurs wouldn't appear for tens of millions of years. Dimetrodon belonged to a completely different branch of the evolutionary tree called synapsids. And yes, that eventually becomes very important. That enormous sail on its back, we don't know exactly what it was for. One leading idea is that it helped with temperature regulation. Other possibilities include display or species recognition. It may even have served more than one purpose. But one thing is clear, this was a serious predator, and if you just woke up here, you probably don't want to get introduced personally. But here's the weird part. The strangest thing about Dimetrodon isn't the sail, it's what came after it. Dimetrodon belongs to the synapsid lineage, and over the next several million years, that lineage produced animals called therapsids. They had more upright limbs, increasingly specialized jaws, and bodies that were becoming better adapted to life on land. Then came cynodonts. Some were small, some had increasingly mammal-like features, and eventually, their descendants produced the first true mammals. Synapsid, therapsid, cynodont, mammal. You? Wait, that thing? Me? Well, not exactly, but somewhere incredibly far back on your family tree. Yes, that sail-backed predator belongs to the same broad lineage that eventually produced you. So maybe you shouldn't just be afraid of it. Maybe you should be slightly grateful. But enjoy this world while it lasts, because it's about to fall apart. Millions of years pass in a blink. By now, Dimetrodon and its kind are long gone, replaced by their own descendants, the therapsids, who now rule the land you're standing on. And around the end of the Permian, enormous volcanic activity was taking place in what is now Siberia, the Siberian Traps. This wasn't one giant volcano sitting there waiting to explode. It was a massive volcanic province, with huge volumes of magma erupting and intruding through the crust, and the gases released during this activity helped push Earth's climate into a dangerous chain reaction. Here's the basic sequence. Massive volcanic activity. Greenhouse gases enter the atmosphere, temperatures rise, the oceans change, oxygen levels in parts of the sea collapse, and marine ecosystems begin to break down. One problem creates another, then another, then another, and eventually, the entire system starts coming apart. This wasn't simply one disaster, it was a cascade, and life was about to pay the price. It doesn't begin with a giant explosion, it begins quietly. One organism dies, then another, then an entire community, then species that had survived for millions of years disappear. Around 252 million years ago, the Permian came to an end, and with it came the most severe mass extinction known in the fossil record. The end Permian extinction. Scientists estimate that the vast majority of marine species were lost, along with a huge portion of life on land. The exact chain of events was complicated, but the evidence strongly connects the extinction with the enormous volcanic episode in Siberia and the environmental changes that followed. Oceans became increasingly hostile. Parts of the seas lost oxygen, climate changed dramatically, food webs began collapsing, and on land, ecosystems were being pushed beyond what many species could tolerate. This wasn't just one animal losing its habitat, it was entire ecosystems disappearing. The world wasn't simply changing, it was being rewritten. For millions of years, life had been building this world. Forests, predators, prey, food chains, entire communities of organisms that depended on one another. And then, they started disappearing. In geological terms, it happened incredibly fast. Not fast like a human disaster, fast like a planet. And when it was over, the world was almost unrecognizable. Imagine standing here, no cities, no roads, no technology, and now, barely any life, just silence. But here's the strange thing about life. It doesn't need the world to be perfect, it just needs something to survive. Some organisms made it through, small, adaptable, able to eat different things, able to live in difficult conditions. And suddenly, there was something new, space. Ecological space, millions of empty roles that used to belong to organisms that were gone. The survivors began spreading into them, slowly, unevenly, and with plenty of setbacks. The early Triassic wasn't some beautiful new paradise. It was harsh, hot, and still recovering from the disaster that came before it, but it was alive, and that was enough. The Permian was over, but the story wasn't. Something else was coming. Not immediately, not even close, but the world that survived the Great Dying would eventually become the stage for an entirely different group of animals. Oh, come on. The dinosaurs were still waiting in the future, but the world was changing again. Permian, mass extinction, recovery, then eventually, the Mesozoic era, the age of dinosaurs, and much later, after the dinosaurs were gone too, the descendants of those ancient synapsids would still be here. The mammals, waiting for their turn. So the next time you look at Earth and assume it's always been this way, remember something. This planet has completely rewritten itself before. Not once, not twice, over and over again. Forests disappear, oceans change, entire groups of animals vanish, and somehow life keeps going. And that's the strangest part. We're not standing at the beginning of Earth's story. We're living in one of the chapters that came after the rewrite. So the next time you look at Earth and assume it's always been this way, remember something. It hasn't. This planet has completely rewritten itself before. Not once, not twice, over and over again. Forests have disappeared, oceans have changed, entire groups of animals have vanished, and somehow life kept going. Here's the strangest part. The world you woke up in at the beginning of this video doesn't exist anymore. Pangaea is gone. Dimetrodon is gone. The forests of the Permian are gone. Even the dinosaurs that were still waiting in the future are gone now too. And yet, you're here. The oxygen you're breathing, the ground you're standing on, the animals around you. All of it is part of a story that started long before humans ever existed. Millions of generations lived. Millions disappeared. And every single extinction changed what came next. So if there's one thing the Permian teaches us, it's not that Earth is dangerous, it's that Earth is never finished. The planet doesn't have a final version. It changes, it breaks, it rebuilds, and somehow, every time, life finds a way to continue. Maybe the strangest thing isn't that you could have survived Earth 280 million years ago. It's that after everything this planet has been through, we somehow ended up here, in this chapter, on this version of Earth. And if any of this messed with your head a little, that's kind of the whole point. Earth has a lot more of these stories buried in it. So if you want to see the next one, you know what to do. Subscribe. And for a few minutes, we got to look back at the world that came before us.